What is happening, guys? We are back again with another one of these kind of Q&A type episodes of the podcast, of the YouTube channel. Okay, so again, for everyone who didn't see the first one, you can get these in both an article format, you can get them in an audio format, and you can get them in a video format. So whatever suits your learning style, your tastes, your time, whatever, you know? So in today's one, we're going to talk through a question. Well, it's a number of questions that we get because we are quite big, I would say, advocates of cardiovascular work, and a lot of stuff in the fitness industry kind of demonizes cardiovascular work. They kind of make it out as if doing cardio is going to make you lose all kinds of gains, you know? Whether you're a skinny person, you're basically going to go 100% catabolic and lose what little gains you have, or if you're a mass monster or a big bodybuilder and you do cardio, you're going to lose all the gains. You're going to be skinnier than the skinny guy, you know? So that's kind of the message that's put out, and people kind of just take that on board and just stop doing cardiovascular work. But it completely disregards all of the athletes that do actually do cardiovascular work and are still jacked and are still muscular. Like, you look at like sports like rugby or like strongman and stuff, or even powerlifting. Like, there's like your man Milanichev or whatever, however you say his name, he does like 6-kilometer runs and stuff. But completely disregard all of those. They're outliers because that just fits the method or what the gurus say in the fitness industry. Do your cardio, zero gains, okay? But we generally put out the message that that is in fact false, and you can do cardiovascular work and still get gains. And in our experience, you're actually going to enhance the gains that you get, you know? And that is somewhat what the scientific literature would say. However, there are quite a lot of poor studies that don't account for calories, don't account for volume, don't account for a whole host of things, and that would lead you to assume from those studies that doing cardiovascular work is going to make you lose all your gains, okay? So if you are bought into it and you're going, okay, cool, we're going to believe these two skinny guys and start doing some cardio. I'm going to start getting fitter because I want to be fitter. Because the majority of people listening here, they aren't looking to be the next mass monster. They aren't looking to be the absolute biggest sidewalk cracking person in their entire, I don't know, universe, whatever. They're just looking to be fit, healthy, and be able to, you know, go about their daily life and be pain-free and not be held back by their body, shall we say. You know, they're able to go out and play football with their kids. They're able to run for the bus. They're not held back by their body failing them in a physical demand. That's what most people are looking for. Most people that are listening to this, that's the kind of feedback that we get. People just want to be able to human well, you know? So doing some cardiovascular work does actually facilitate you being able to human well, okay? So the thing about cardio is a lot of people do more cardio and then see all the detriments that we're saying that you won't see. You know, they see themselves, they see their strength go down, they see their weight go down on the scale, they see all these things, and generally it's because they haven't come in with a graded approach to cardiovascular work, that they just decided, oh, I'm going to start running now, and they just add in 2 10k runs to their week. They just went from 0 kilometers per week up to 20 kilometers per week, and they wonder why they're seeing a detriment to that. They didn't change their calories, they didn't change their recovery methods from what they were previously doing. They just added more, and then all of a sudden they saw stuff go down, okay? So when I'm saying it and I'm laying it out like that, it seems pretty obvious what the issue is. However, that's not actually what I want to get into today. So in the militia, we're going to go through a good few articles. Like, we have them all planned out, and we have some training programs planned out, etc., all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking at, or you're looking into how should I actually be laying this out, how should I actually integrate all of these different things that I want to achieve, like, go to the militia. That's where you're going to find all of that stuff. That's that greasy salesman pitch out of the way. But now into the nuts and bolts of this question. So people are asking, how do I know if I should add more cardio? Or how do I know if I'm getting fitter? That kind of general question. Those are the two kind of general questions that are kind of the same question that we get quite often. So people are kind of going, how do I know if I'm getting fitter? How do I objectively know if I'm getting fitter? Yeah, the runs that I'm doing, or the cycling that I'm doing, or the swimming, or whatever modality it is that I'm doing is getting a little bit easier. But is that just a subjective feeling? You're enjoying it a little bit more. Maybe the weather has changed, it's sunnier, etc., etc. There's so many other variables that are going into it that you're kind of questioning yourself whether you are actually making cardiovascular progress, or you're just subjectively telling yourself, you're just placeboed yourself, And then also we're getting people going, I've been doing some cardiovascular work, but how do I know if I'm actually progressing? Because if you go to the gym, you lift some weights, you know if you're progressing or not because, oh yeah, I was using the 30 kilos and now I'm using the 40 kilos. I've progressed. It's pretty straightforward. It's very straightforward in terms of there was the smaller number, I'm now doing the bigger number, I'm stronger. So you can pretty objectively track that, Same with, your physique. We've talked about it before, tracking your physique. I think it was the last episode we talked about, the scales and stuff. There's a huge amount of metrics that you can use to track your physique, especially the mirror and stuff, so you can see things are changing. However, when you look at your cardiovascular work, unless you're being competitive, you're doing marathons, 10K runs, Tough Mudders, Spartan races, that kind of stuff, unless you're objectively tracking some sort of metric in terms of performance, you kind of get lost and you kind of go, well, am I actually improving, or is it just, I think I am. So we'll kind of dive into it. That's what the article dives in a little bit deeper in. But to give you a kind of quicker synopsis of what we discussed in the article, there's kind of 4 things that you can use to somewhat objectively track if you are progressing, and then you can use that as a barometer of, should I add more, or should I be doing something different, or should I, change up the modalities that I'm using. Okay, so the first one, it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to get, especially with the convenience these days in having, heart rate monitors on your wrist, like Fitbits and, Nokia watches and all those other kind of watches, Garmin watches, whatever it is, having wearable fitness trackers in watch form makes this next thing very easy to track. And what I'm talking about is your resting heart rate. Now, you could wake up in the morning because that's generally the best time to get it, unless of course you're waking up to an alarm and your house is on fire and all other kind of stressors are going off. But even still, generally the first thing in the morning is the best time to get your resting heart rate. Some people like sitting down, some people like standing, some people like lying down. I actually don't really care as long as we're consistent in our measurement. So if you take your measurement and it's always just before breakfast, after you've gone down the stairs and had a glass of water, and you sit down on the sofa, cool. Just standardize that and just measure it all the time, because we're not actually looking for the exact resting heart rate. That, for certain modalities, certain things, certain protocols, we are looking for a more exact number. But what we're actually looking for with measuring and tracking our resting heart rate is a trend in a certain direction. Much like we're looking at with weight, when we're looking at a weight loss diet or whatever, we're looking at the trend. The day-to-day variance isn't so important. It's more so the trend in the right direction. That's what we're looking at. So with the resting heart rate, there are some brackets that you'd like to be in. Generally, they say normal population is somewhere in that 60 to 90 range. However, if you're looking after your health and you're looking to be the healthiest human you can be, we like somewhere in that kind of 45 to 60 bracket. Now, that's not to say that that is where we want everyone to be, because, for some people, being that fit is detrimental to their overall goals. And for some people, they just run a little bit higher on the resting heart rate. Like they might be super fit, but just have a resting heart rate of 65 and it's causing no problems, So generally that's kind of the range we use, 45 to 60, although the lower you go than say 50, we potentially are running into some issues, but we won't get that into that here. We do discuss it a little bit in the article, but somewhere in that range as a resting heart rate is pretty good to go. So if you are looking to bring in more cardio, or you're looking to bring in cardio full stop, do a little tracking of your resting heart rate either in the morning or just throughout the day. If you have a fitness watch, cool. If you have to use your 2 fingers, pulse on the wrist or on the neck or whatever it is, just track it over time, and that's what you want to measure your fitness against. If your resting heart rate is going down, cool, we're on the right direction with our overall cardiovascular fitness. Okay, so that does give you some indications of how things are moving, whether you should bring in more or perhaps even reduce it. If you have been doing 2 cardio sessions per week and you've been stuck at 65, perhaps doing some more cardiovascular work is going to benefit you, especially if you've only been doing, maybe 30 minutes twice per week. Maybe bumping that up to 40 minutes twice per week is all you'll need to do to see some improvement. So when I'm saying increase the volume of cardiovascular work, I'm not talking about add an extra hour per week or add an extra 30 minutes per session. Small additions in the volume of cardiovascular work you're doing will add up and you should see improvement. Also, I would suggest ensuring you're doing the right kind of cardiovascular work for your goals, because in modern fitness, health, whatever this industry you want to call it, we again have pushed away from that doing low intensity, slow or steady state cardio, and it's all high intensity. You have to realize that the high intensity work, while it does improve your aerobic fitness to some extent, it's not going to improve it as much as doing lower intensity cardiovascular work. So while it's more time efficient in terms of you only have to do 15-20 minute high intensity workout, and you have to do 30-40 minutes of a lower intensity workout, you have to look at the adaptations you're getting from them. And we've discussed them before in the militia, we've discussed them before on Facebook, Instagram, etc. I think we've even discussed them on the podcast. So we have discussed it, and obviously we discuss it more in depth in the militia if you were looking to look into what those adaptations are and how to tailor your program to those. But just realize you should be doing the correct kind of cardio for your overall goals. And in this instance, if you're looking to get cardiovascularly fitter, I would suggest a majority of people at least start out with aerobic fitness, and what I mean by that is, staying below the level of heart rate that pushes you into an anaerobic zone. So keeping your heart rate, generally I like somewhere, if you get 180 minus your age, we'll call that your cutoff for your aerobic system. Your heart rate any higher than that, you're moving more anaerobic. Now obviously that's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a good general kind of guideline. Okay, so realize you have to do the right kind of cardio to get the kind of adaptations you want. The exact same with strength training, like saying you want to build muscle and all you do is triples and doubles. Like, yes, you may build some muscle, but it's not going to be as much muscle or you're not going to as quickly build that muscle as if you were doing more hypertrophy specific work. Okay, so do realize that the adaptation matters, and therefore the protocol you use matters. So resting heart rate, get it down a little bit lower. Perhaps you need to add a little bit more volume. Perhaps you just need to reduce your volume because you're happy with your resting heart rate and you want to push on with other metrics. The next thing you can use is heart rate variability training, because although using your resting heart rate or even your heart rate throughout the day is a good snapshot of where things are, using your heart rate variability will give you a little bit more in-depth understanding of that. There are some issues with heart rate variability. There are some pros, there are some cons, but it's like with any system, like you use it for what it is. It is a snapshot of what you're looking to track with that. So we're looking at the variability between your heart rates, quite obviously with your heart rate variability. And you can use different tracking apps for this. Do realize that although we give recommendations in the article, each app or each method you use, like if you use a phone camera sensor, the photo sensor, it's going to be different than if you use a fitness watch, and it's going to be different if you use a chest strap, and then it's also going to be different if you use different apps to track those. So again, like with resting heart rate, it's not so much the actual number that we're looking for, it's the trend over time that we're looking for. With heart rate variability, with most of the apps, you are going to have to do it every single day to get a clearer picture of what's going on. And that does kind of put some people off because they're like, oh, I'm always rushing in the morning and I need to get this done and this is an extra 5 minutes that I just don't have. So that is generally what people kind of put forward as a complaint against it. However, it's not that hard to kind of sit down 2-3 minutes, get your heart rate variability, and away you go with your day, you know. So it does give you some metrics to track to see if your fitness is improving. So if your heart rate variability is going up, again, you're going to presume your fitness is improving. However, there is this little kind of workaround, we'll say, or this issue with heart rate variability where if you are under recovering, your heart rate variability will also go up. So you might be like, oh cool, I started off and my heart rate variability was 60 and now it's up at 90. And it's like, okay, you just introduced like 3 extra cardio sessions, didn't increase your calories, didn't change anything about your resistance training program, and now you're under recovered, and that's why your heart rate variability is up so high. So do pay attention. We will begin going deeper on heart rate variability in the militia, so it is something that you do have to understand a little bit more, but it is actually a pretty easy and intuitive to see tool to track your actual cardiovascular fitness. So again, HRV, different apps, different modalities of tracking it, and it should give you a general indication of what's going on. Now, you can also use, if you don't want to get into, you know, buying a certain app or buying a certain product or whatever, using your heart rate for a given session. Obviously, you do have to have some sort of measurement tool to get your heart rate for that given session. So you're probably going to have to buy, you know, a heart rate monitor either around your chest or around your wrist. But having an idea of what your heart rate level is at and how it changes through a given session. So if you have a fixed session, I don't care if it's a leg training session, if it's a bicep training session, whatever it is, if it's a cardiovascular training session, probably even better. But as long as you can see, I did this given workout, I've progressed in this given workout, and my heart rate throughout the workout has stayed lower. So you would presume then that you are fitter, okay? Again, it's a little bit easier with cardiovascular work for a given workout because you can go, okay, well, I ran 10 kilometers and my average heart rate was 170, and now I ran 10 kilometers and my average heart rate was 140, and the time I ran it in was comparable, therefore I'm fitter. Same thing again, if you're doing a leg workout or whatever, it's a little bit more variable because, you know, you're not doing the cardiovascular work essentially, although I would argue that you kind of are as well. It is a little bit harder to track, but you should get a rough understanding that I did X workout, same amount of volume, roughly similar weights, or perhaps you progressed the weights and your heart rate was better in the second time you tested it. So you can kind of see an improvement over time. That is another method to track how your heart rate is going. And what we'll generally see with clients, they'll start tracking their heart rate, they'll start tracking, you know, they either have a Fitbit or whatever it is, or a chest monitor, and they'll be doing their workouts and they'll kind of go, oh, my heart rate never goes over 120 or 110 during my workouts. Am I not training hard enough? And it's kind of like, that's actually what we want to see. We want to see you being able to recover quite quickly between your sets, being able to keep your training more aerobic. Because everyone always kind of goes, yeah, resistance training is anaerobic, but realistically, if you want to compare it to sprints, which is what everyone does, you have to then go, let's look at repeated sprint efforts, if I could speak. And repeated sprint efforts, every single sprint after the first one becomes more aerobically dominant rather than anaerobically dominant. And that's essentially what you're doing when you are lifting weights. You are doing repeated sprints if you want to claim that it's anaerobic. So you have to look at that rather than just one all-out sprint. Unless you're coming into the gym and doing, you know, just one all-out set and you're just gone after that, cool, then that's probably anaerobic. If you're doing multiple sets, you're more aerobic as the session goes on. And being more aerobically fit is going to allow you to accumulate more volume and recover quicker between sets. So if you're going, oh, it takes me 3 to 5 minutes between a set of 8, it's like, okay, well, let's see if we can actually get that down. Why do you need that 3 to 5 minutes? Let's see if we can bring that down by actually getting you fitter. So there are many reasons why you would want to get fitter. Again, some of them are covered in the article. We've discussed them before. Let's not get into it here. Then the final one is one that you would think is pretty intuitive, given the industry likes to kind of go and use the rating of perceived effort scale, you know, RPE, and they kind of go, oh, how hard is that set? And they'll go, oh, it was a 7 RPE. And then they just completely disregard the fact that it's not the intensity of your set that matters as much as how you are actually able to recover from those sets. So something probably more beneficial for you would be like a rating of perceived recovery. So you should be doing that in the morning. Like if you're using RPE during your training sessions and you're not using RPR, rating of perceived recovery, you know, your RPE settings or your RPE scale is always going to be pretty invalid, because if you're not recovered, you're always going to be like, oh, well, that felt heavier than it was, or that felt heavier than it was. Whereas if you were kind of going, I'm actually recovered, this is my rating of perceived recovery this morning, I feel I'm at 10 out of 10, you know, maybe now today, this is the day I'm going to bump up my RPEs, you know. So if you're only using RPE, you're missing out on another scale. And I would argue for most people, understanding that it's recovery that's allowing you to train harder and it's allowing you to actually progress is key to you actually, you know, training hard and progressing. So using a perceived recovery or rating of perceived recovery, you know, it's a little bit more subjective than the more somewhat objective ones we've talked about. But if you understand that, okay, I feel more recovered because I've been doing more cardiovascular work, and after my sessions I'm not as drained, I have more energy day to day because of that, like mitochondrial biogenesis, you know, you've actually upregulated the growth, we'll say, of mitochondria, and you just have more energy throughout the day, then you are going to feel more recovered throughout the day, you know. So that is a good scale to kind of bring in, especially if you're looking to see how is my cardiovascular work actually affecting my overall performance, my overall health, my overall life in general. So rating of perceived recovery, again, it doesn't have to be hard. You can go really down the rabbit hole with this and start, you know, rating everything that would contribute to recovery, like how was my sleep length, how was my sleep quality, etc., etc. But again, perhaps you don't have to go that deep, but understanding that it is the recovery and your perceived recovery that would allow us to dictate whether more cardio is needed, less cardio is needed, more volume in the gym is needed, less volume in the gym is needed. So it is a good kind of scale to bring in. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. I think we're kind of, you know, 20 odd minutes into this. We always try to keep these short and sweet. And if you are interested in either looking at my face, if you're not on YouTube, this is on YouTube. If you are just looking at wanting to hear the audio, again, this is going to be on all your podcasting apps. You can stream it there. And of course, if you want to look at the article, it'll be linked in the description box for all of these. Anyway, guys, that is me. Peace out.